And it's always interesting to me when people are, and these NBA players are all very well compensated, right? I mean, they're gazillionaires, and yet they're involved in some kind of illegal poker thing. Like they have to. I mean, how much could you be? Let's assume they can make a couple extra million a year doing this. Just seems like it seems like a grift you don't need. Let's start with the crypto pardon. That's right, President Trump pardoning Changpeng Zhao, the billionaire founder of the cryptocurrency exchange Binance. Binance, this massive cryptocurrency exchange run by Changpeng Zhao, who admitted in 2023 to money laundering violations. And again, Binance so massive that the money laundering violations, and this is admitted in his plea, allowed terrorists, drug traffickers, and other criminals to move money on the Binance platform. Zhao is the majority owner of Binance. It has a deal, does Binance, with the Trump family's crypto startup.
Oh, fun. Are you saying that crypto and Binance is the way that criminals move their money around?
Without question, it is the way that you can pay someone off or some entity off, and there's very little way, even though it's on the blockchain.
Idea, but it just might work.
And it's suggested that the Trump family has very much benefited from that so far. Talk to David K. Johnson. You can talk to Sarah Kendzior about this. Talk to pretty much anybody. It's right out there. So anyway, this Binance connection to the Trump family, it's suggested, has led to the pardoning of this guy who's the majority holder of Binance. President Trump exercised his constitutional authority by issuing a pardon for Mr. Zhao, who was prosecuted by the Biden administration in their war on cryptocurrency, said Caroline Levitt. The pardon was, of course, the latest example of how high-profile business partners of Mr. Trump and his family have benefited from his rollback of the wide-ranging crypto crackdown that was orchestrated by Joe Biden. To seek the pardon, Mr. Zhao hired lawyers and lobbyists who had ties to the Trump administration. Meanwhile, Binance struck a business deal with World Liberty Financial. Does everybody know what World Liberty Financial is? You'll recall that. We talked about it at length. It is the Trump family's crypto startup. It's kind of like the eBay of crypto, or a better, it's like the E-Trade of crypto, right? Like it's like the Charles Schwab. You can buy and sell crypto on the Trump family platform. So there is Zhao, and Zhao's business Binance struck this deal with World Liberty Financial. That deal alone is poised to generate tens of millions of dollars a year for the Trumps and for the family of Steve Witkoff, because Witkoff, who's the Middle East advisor, he's also doing the Ukraine deal. He was Trump's golfing buddy. He's also a real estate billionaire. His son is in business with the Trump sons on this platform, the crypto platform. So again, this deal alone generates tens of millions of dollars. And that's from just the Binance buy-in, okay? Not to mention all the millions of dollars and tens of millions of dollars you get with every all these various trades in the collective. But the crypto industry's richest man, Zhao, a Chinese-born executive who now lives in the United Arab Emirates, admitted that he had violated the law by failing to install rigorous compliance systems at Binance that allowed people in countries under sanctions and terrorist groups like Hamas, Al-Qaeda, and the Islamic State to move money on his Binance platform. When he pleaded guilty, Zhao, who goes by CZ, stepped down as chief executive of Binance, though he remained its majority owner, held on to virtually all of his wealth. Now he could have an opportunity to retake direct control of the exchange The pardon could make it easier for Binance to establish a presence in the U.S. market and then challenge domestic exchanges like Coinbase and Kraken. You see how this stuff matters in the overall business environment.
Does it say how much he paid for the pardon?
Well, we know he bought into the
Oh.
World Liberty Financial. I mean, I think that's pretty much all you had to do.
Yeah.
And then, as noted, he employed lawyers and lobbyists to get this done. But this is by far the biggest crypto exchange in the world. And at times, they note here, it has processed as much as 2/3 of all digital currency transactions. 2/3 of all crypto is traded on Binance. To have them back in the game is huge. So, and FTX was that other major exchange. It went down because of the arrest of their CEO. And with them out of the game, Binance may be the big player in crypto. So he gets his pardon, and the Trump family gets to rejoin them and Binance with World Liberty Financial. Meantime, the Trump administration planning to demolish the White House's entire East Wing. At the same time, the cost of the ballroom now, instead of the $200 million, is being revised. And like many contractors revise, they tend not to revise down. The new cost will be $300 million.
What?
Yeah.
So we went from the East Wing won't be touched, the ballroom will be just adjacent, to we're just knocking down the facade to make an entryway from one building to the other, to now the entire East Wing is a goner?
That's right. You've got it, Kim. It's a 90,000 square foot ballroom project that was, as Kim suggests, promised to exist independent of the White House. It won't interfere with the current building. Those were the words of Donald Trump, the president. But now it turns out they'll need to get rid of the East Wing, and the cost of the entire thing is going to be now up to $300 million. Now, no one has asked this question that I've seen, but can I just ask it? How the hell are you spending $300 million to build this ballroom? I just don't. What are you building it out of? Bricks of cocaine? I don't understand why it's so expensive.
That's gold.
Do
to
that
you,
math.
Mark.
It's more than $2,000 a square foot. I don't understand how you spend that kind of money. But I do understand the promise that's been made that there'll be no taxpayer money dedicated to this build.
Except
it's going to
maybe
be done.
except the 230 million that he's going to give
Right.
to charity. Suddenly the charity might be the ballroom. I don't know.
I
how
promise
that
you
would count.
that $230 million that Trump will get, because he's the one who has to approve it, it'll go right into his pocket. It ain't going into the ballroom. The ballroom is going to be paid for by Palantir, by Meta, by Google. It's already happened. We've already we detailed on this show 25 million here, 10 million there. So the idea somehow that this is going to be handled by private money, that's not supposed to happen either. Do you understand the way in which there is a quid pro quo associated with private money going in? So I don't care that I'm glad it's not being done by taxpayer money, although I don't necessarily even believe that that's true. But the idea, at least as articulated, that it's going to be sponsored, if you will, by, I don't know, crypto.com or whatever, Binance.
Binance.
Yeah, it'll be the Binance.
It'll be the Binance ballroom.
Or the World Liberty Financial Ballroom, whatever. That's not the way it's supposed to be. This is an outrage. It's a perversion of the symbolism associated with the White House, which is the people's house, and also the actual practical restrictions on buying influence. I mean, you essentially are, this is a White House that's wildly open for influence peddling, as we know. But everything is being done in this coarse, loathsome way. And so the latest is East Wing gone, 300 instead of 200, and that's the latest on that.
Calvin Wong is
Meantime,
asking if you could ask Mr. Predicto if the price of this ballroom will balloon up to 500 million.
oh, I'll just
Yeah.
ask Mr. Predicto, will the price of the ballroom exceed the expressed 300 million? Will it go beyond 300 million? I ask you, Mr. Predicto.
Everything points to no.
No? So Mr. Predicto thinks that it will stay at 300 million. Shout out producer Calvin Wong. So, yeah, it's a bargain at 300 million. And there was major news this morning out of the FBI, and it dealt with some very high-profile people. The head coach of the Portland Trail Blazers is among those charged in an illegal poker operation tied to the mafia. Meanwhile, Miami Heat guard Terry Rozier, or is that how he says his name, Albert? You're the commish.
Yeah, that's correct. He has before you get into it, he had ties even last season to an investigation that the NBA made. So the FBI on Terry Rozier did their own investigation and actually found stuff.
I see. Yeah, he illegal gambling is what I think that case was about. So, but this is pretty serious stuff. The poker games apparently included basketball players lending credibility to their authenticity, the authenticity of the games. And then the games were allegedly rigged in favor of those running the games. They used technologies like rigged shuffling machines and X-ray technologies. You could read cards facing down on the table. I didn't even know you could do this stuff. And I played a lot of poker. And I played in some games with some of these guys, but not in these games that they're talking about. I mean, these are obviously games where there's, I think, some sick amount of money, being shoved around the table. Athlete type salaries you need to play these games. But
so there's ties to the mafia here, and everyone who was a part of these poker games were in on it except for the people they invited. So they used the high profile nature of these former athletes to get these people, oh, you could go play poker with Chauncey Billups, but except the mafia and Chauncey Billups were all in on it and were basically stealing from all these people.
Yeah. You have a little bit of the announcement this morning. They made a major announcement with Kash Patel, I think, was there wearing his FBI jacket. And this is huge because it does, as Albert has just noted, and Albert we call him the commish because he is our commissioner of sports. It does involve the Cosa Nostra. I mean, it involves the mob. Go ahead, Albert. Here's a little bit of the announcement. You can see those watching on YouTube. You can see that's Kash Patel in his blue FBI jacket alongside those who are involved with the legal proceedings and charges that will be brought against.
Now, I would like to turn to the other case, United States versus Aiello, the rigged poker game case. Beginning as early as 2019, the defendants in this case orchestrated a scheme to use wireless cheating technology to run rigged poker games across the United States, including in the Hamptons, Las Vegas, Miami, and Manhattan. The scheme targeted victims known as, quote, fish, who were often lured to participate in these rigged games by the chance to play alongside former professional athletes who were known as, quote, face cards. The so-called face cards included the defendant Chauncey Billups, who at the time of the scheme was a former NBA player and is currently the head coach of the Portland Trail Blazers, and also Damon Jones, a former NBA player and coach. What the victims, the fish, didn't know is that everybody else at the poker game, from the dealer to the players, including the face cards, were in on the scam. Once the game was underway, the defendants fleeced the victims out of tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars per game. The defendants used a variety of very sophisticated cheating technologies, some of which were provided by other defendants in exchange for a share of the profits from the scheme. For example, they used off-the-shelf shuffling machines that had been secretly altered in order to read the cards in the deck, predict which player at the table had the best poker hand, and relay that information to an off-site operator. The off-site operator sent the information via cell phone back to a co-conspirator at the table, and that person at the table was known as the quarterback. The quarterback then signaled secretly the information he had received from others to others at the table, and together they used that information in order to win their games and to cheat the victims.
I guess there was millions of dollars involved. You know, I mean,
It's a wild idea, but it just might work.
I mean, it's a really complicated system. That they with X-rays, and then there's a Confederate who can see it, and then radios back or whatever it may be. But I mean, when you're dealing with millions of dollars, I guess it's worth having that kind of complexity laid over it. It's pretty amazing that there's so many participants, and it's always interesting to me when people are, and these NBA players are all very well compensated, right? I mean, they're gazillionaires, and yet they're involved in some kind of illegal poker thing. Like they have to. I mean, how much could you be? Let's assume they can make a couple extra million a year doing this. Just seems like it seems like a grift you don't need.
Isn't it though they find a weakness and they exploit it and they say, okay, you do this for us or we do this to you, and it's the mob way, right? So maybe even if they didn't want to do it or didn't need the money, they are pushed into it because
it's a fair point that with the mob involved, you never know exactly who's leaning on who. How long until Trump pardons them all? Thank you, Wendy. That's exactly. I mean, it's so true. There seems to be, if you're a celebrity and you have any connection to Trump and you say something nice, you will get your pardon. But it's extraordinary. Gambling, debt to the mob. It is true. Also, the last thing I would say to you, Commissioner, maybe you can say a thing or two about this, but the NBA, first professional sport to embrace gambling on the sport. That is to say, there's always been this kind of radioactivity about gambling and mentioning gambling around sports, but the NBA went with it. They said, hey, it's okay. You can bet on this sport.
Yeah, they were the first ones in a couple. I remember Atlanta and a couple other locations where live betting is allowed. They actually were allowed that to happen in arenas. And it started with the NBA, and then it branched out. You see it all over. Like ESPN News now might as well just be a gambling service. Like I used to watch that a lot as a kid growing up. Now it's just lines 24/7 and betting. But it starts with that. And there's the Damon. They mentioned other players, Damon Jones and Terry Rozier. They're also part of a separate investigation where they're actually influencing the games. So we'll see what happens with them on top of this whole mafia stuff as well.
Yeah. By the way, you mentioned arenas. Gil Arenas is mentioned in all of this, isn't he? He's an NBA player, right? I believe he's mentioned in some of this as well.
I mean, he was the guy who brought a gun to the locker room and had that whole controversy. I think there's a great thing on Netflix about him too, but a lot of controversy around. I'm sure there's a lot more people and a lot more names that will be coming up.
He's the only one I actually have played poker with, but it was in a very small game. It was like, you buy in for a few, maybe $1,000, but it was a few $100.
He knows he's a crazy guy and he's a fun guy and he just leans into it. So I'm sure he'll just like laugh this off and just kind of move on.
Were you the bust. Fish, Mark? You were the fish.
I was the fish. By the way, I am the fish for, I believe I'm so bad at poker that even if you told me, hey, don't worry, the game's all fixed, I know somehow I'm going to end up losing still. Even though don't worry, we're only going after, no, somehow I know I'm going to end up losing here. That, my friends, is law and disorder.